And we are live with another episode of the Keeg Talks. It's the Keeg Talks, Thor, Love, and Thunder, the movie that literally just came out, and we're here to talk about it so we can get a podcast episode out and, help this small independent film, get at least a couple of tickets sold. Right? I'm your host, Dimitri Pereira, and we are here to talk about Thor, Love, and Thunder, but I'm not here to talk about it alone. Instead, I got a wonderful guest, first-timer B. Fitzgerald, a.k.a. Chaos on Olympus. B, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. You are 8 hours ahead of me.
Yes. Yes, I am. I am calling in from London.
Yeah.
Where this tiny film, select cinemas, pity sales coming through, but searched high and low for a ticket to manage to see it.
It was hard to find a theater that
it was
had
really hard. London has a lot of bougie independent cinemas, and just they were like, this is too tiny, too obscure.
Yeah, it's like when you're too tiny for the tiny theaters, it's like, I mean, you should have just done like a stage play at that point.
You know? I hear Matt Damon's free.
Yeah, Matt Damon, is it Luke Hemsworth?
Yeah, Luke, I think.
Luke Hemsworth.
Was that Melissa McCarthy as well?
Melissa McCarthy and Sam Neill.
I see, yeah.
Maybe we can get the four of them together to do like a stage production of this. When did you see this movie?
I saw it on Thursday.
Okay. And was it released on Thursday for you guys? Because Thursday night for you guys would have been Thursday morning for us.
Yeah, it was released on Thursday.
Okay. And I saw it Thursday night as well. How was your theater going experience seeing this movie?
It was ridiculously empty, which was
really
interesting. Makes sense for such a tiny film. But yeah, no, it was really quiet.
Wait, I can't tell whether are we still on
No, genuinely, it was really quiet.
Okay.
Like quite shockingly quiet for opening night. And we only bought our tickets like the day before as well, and it was really easy to get tickets. But, it was nice to be back in the cinema again. I kind of haven't been going much because, I don't know, London and COVID, etc. So got to make it worth it. It was fun to actually see a film on the big screen rather than on Disney Plus.
Yeah, because the last movie you saw was
Black Widow.
Yeah. It's interesting that there's a long gap between Black Widow and this. Is it the blockbusters that bring you out to the theaters? Everybody has such interesting, unique, specific movie-going habits. Like some people don't go at all, and some people go to literally every movie.
I think mine have just changed massively in lockdown. I've just found it really difficult to keep up with when each of the new films are coming out. And then by the time I realize, I'm like, oh, I might as well just wait for it to come to X streaming platform. And then also cinemas in London tend to be quite expensive. So got to make it worth it, I guess. I suppose I would only really see a film in cinema in the before times if it was a big blockbuster or a book that I loved that had been turned into a film rather than sort of regular one. There were also no trailers before the film. So I'm like, you can't expect me to come back if you're not showing me the trailers.
There wasn't trailers at your place?
No trailers.
Okay. I went to a special screening that anyways doesn't have trailers at IMAX headquarters. IMAX, the number one way to see movies, I should say. That was a plug for IMAX. IMAX headquarters invited us out to come see it, and so we got to go see it. And there's obviously no trailers there, and we got to see it on an IMAX screen, which was awesome. And I can't judge the normal movie-going audience by that because we were all invitees. And so it's interesting to me that your theater was kind of empty.
So empty, and I don't know. it's quite a big theater, and I don't think I've seen anything there that's been massively packed, but it was empty. The closest thing to a trailer we had was this weird skit by John Boyega to turn off our phones.
Is he like, what's the theater that you went to? Is it like a chain over there?
Yeah, it's called Vue.
Okay.
VUE.
Yeah. So you guys have John Boyega like doing a little like intro. We have Nicole Kidman.
We have a lot of weird
for
ads.
AMC.
You have Kevin Bacon trying to sell you phone cards, because we've had that for a while. He's like, buy an eSIM, and I'm like, no, thank you.
Wow.
But yeah, it was like this weird trailer with like John Boyega filming a fake film while loads of people were on their phones, ruining the film going experience that went on way too long, without even concluding with turn your phones off. They just expected everyone to get it, despite the fact that everyone had tuned out for a while.
Yeah.
And then straight into the film.
That's wild.
I mean, there was some adverts and things, but no trailers.
Okay, because that's wild. Like over here for the AMC chain, I don't know if you have AMCs over there. The AMC chain, it's like the biggest chain for theaters. We have Nicole Kidman, and we've been making fun of that promo for a long time.
We've always had some weird ones, but I guess I haven't been to the cinema in long enough to say what's happening there.
Yeah. I wonder what the box office like tickets are like for Thor: Love and Thunder, but I guess like before we like talk about the actual movie, I do want to know like how have you been like what are your opinions on the Thor movies up until this point? Thor 1, 2, Ragnarok. How have you been like?
They're really variable, I think.
Yeah.
Like, as you are aware, I was a big Marvel fangirl circa 2012, where I was very deeply rooted in that kind of Tumblr version of what Marvel was. Like, okay, they all live in Stark Tower and they all have a separate floor and they get together for movie nights. Like, reading loads of like fan fiction where Loki's punishment was to go join like the Stark Tower, and it was all just, and I kind of just, it became distinctly apparent to me that they were never going to make them friends, and that was very sad. And then Age of Ultron happened, and it was honestly like a switch flipped, and I just kind of stopped caring a little bit. And my love for the Marvel franchise is kind of built back up slowly and gradually, and Thor Ragnarok is a big part of that. I really love that film. I would probably say Thor, the first movie, like, it's fine. It's fun. It was really fun for the time it came out in. Now I think there are better ones. I absolutely love Darcy, Kat Dennings' character, especially in the Thor film, where she's running around trying to save all the puppies, because that would be me in that scenario. Like, oh, big robot attacking the town, let's go save all the dogs.
Yeah.
And I think it's really
I always get sad, like, when there's a natural disaster or disaster, like natural disaster in real life or disaster movies. Like, what about the animals?
And I also really love Hawkeye, and I kind of hate what the Marvel TV film franchise has done with Hawkeye. And I feel like the most I've loved him is in that Thor film where he's like, you better call it because I'm starting to root for this guy. That felt more authentically Clint Barton to how I know him than a lot of what's happened in the films. So yeah, I think it's quite like a quiet film, but it's a very fun one. Also, like the acting of Tom Hiddleston and Anthony Hopkins in that film specifically, like, I'm a literature nerd. I have seen a lot of Shakespearean things, and it was just kind of amazing to have that kind of level of energy brought to what was quite a campy superhero film.
Yeah.
And really made me like care about the characters. And yeah, as I say, big Marvel fangirl back in the day. Loki was my fave because I was that basic, and I still am. So Thor: The Dark World was a bit of a disappointment for me, because I felt like most of the footage they used in the trailers was like the best bits of the film. So when I actually went and watched it, I was like, oh, Loki's not actually in this that much, and they've wasted Christopher Eccleston as a villain, and also they've killed one of the few female characters off to further the male characters' plot lines. That's always fun.
Yeah.
And then I love Ragnarok, so really variable in terms of like my thoughts on the different Thor films before this one.
Yeah. I remember when Thor, the first one, came out. First thing, directed by Kenneth Branagh, right?
Again, Shakespearean.
Yeah. How do you feel about him? I know he's one of you guys.
I don't love him, but
Okay.
I feel like the reasons I don't love him are more specifically the Helena Bonham Carter cheating on Emma Thompson scandal, and the fact that I can't unlink him from Gilderoy Lockhart in my brain.
He was my first. The first time I ever saw him was Gilderoy Lockhart, and he was not what I had pictured it from the books.
He wasn't what I pictured looks-wise, but he got the personality spot on.
Yeah. Well, because I think in the books they had like a little illustration of him with like a big chin, and like I'm just like in my head he was kind of chatty, you know.
I was thinking like Prince Charming and Shrek.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was interesting. But the way I saw it, because Captain America and Thor came out roughly the same time, and I compared the two back in the day, saying I like Thor Asgard, then Captain America, then Thor Earth, because I didn't like Thor Earth.
Yeah, I can see that.
I love Asgard. I love mythology. I love all that stuff. I just want more of that.
I think, I mean, we'll get into the film later, but I feel like you could tell that Taika Waititi is that how you pronounce his name? Sorry, I just realized it's a name I've only ever read.
I say Taika Waititi. I think it's Waititi. I don't think it's Waititi.
Yeah.
Or Waititi. I think it's Waititi. Yeah.
Okay, well, you can tell that Taika really loves mythology. Like, he tries to bring a lot of that in.
Yeah.
Which I think is very fun. I think it adds like a new level to it. And I know that Tom Hiddleston specifically did like a lot of his research based in like myth, and you have all those moments in like the first Thor film where you've got like Odin riding in on Sleipnir, and all of that, which are just like fun little nods.
And in this one, I mean, we get so many nods, and you know, so obviously we'll get into it. Tooth Gnasher, Tooth Grinder, right? And so like, wait, are those actually in mythology? Tooth Gnasher and Tooth Grinder?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's hard to tell, because I know Marvel, like when it comes to Norse mythology, I know Marvel Norse mythology as opposed to proper Norse mythology.
I definitely know a lot more about Greek, but I've read the Eddas.
Because you're not called Chaos on Olympus for nothing.
No, I do Greek mythology content. And I read like a lot of world mythology, but I definitely, like, I've studied a lot of like the ancient Greek plays and things, poems. So that's definitely the stuff I know best. But I do, I love Norse mythology as well, and I know a fair bit.
Yeah. What were you expecting out of this movie? Like, again, before we were seeing this movie, maybe the trailer came out, or at the end of Ragnarok, or well, actually at the end of Ragnarok, it was then into Infinity War and then Endgame. So I guess end of Endgame, where's, you know, like what were we expecting from this movie? Because how many, Endgame was 2019.
Yeah.
So it's been 3 years. Weirdly,
I think end of Endgame was the Loki TV show, so I guess
Loki,
hadn't really thought about what Love and Thunder would be until after the Loki TV show.
Yeah, I also didn't realize, now that I think back on it, Loki wasn't anywhere in this movie.
Yeah, which I found quite disappointing.
Oh.
I just think it would have been so easy, because he's such a fan favorite. I think it would have been so easy to get Tom Hiddleston in to do like the end credit scene or like a flashback scene, like just to kind of have him in the film, or even just like a kind of subtle, I might have missed it. It might have been too subtle for me, but just like maybe a little nod to something that's happening on the Loki TV show. So we still have that presence of him there, even though he's not actually there. And all we got was like the quick flashbacks to his many, many deaths.
That's right. That's right, when Korg is talking about it. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not saying that I wanted Loki in it, but there's definitely a difference kind of in the energy.
I think so.
But I'm not sure whether that could have been remedied by something else.
I think Loki, especially across the Thor films, across the Loki TV show, there's a level of difference each time he's in a thing to what his character is.
Yeah.
And I feel like Marvel definitely reached a point around the Dark World where they just didn't know what to do with this character anymore. I think one of my biggest criticisms of the Marvel franchise is that they always feel like they need to go bigger and better with their big bads and with their heroes. So you kind of start off with someone like Loki, who's like, oh, he's been studying sorcery for like 1,000 years. And then by the time you've introduced like Doctor Strange and Wanda, it's like, oh, this guy isn't actually very powerful and he's been falling for 30 minutes. And then you're like, okay, so he's not really that big a threat. And what do we do with this guy? And yeah, I just, but at the same time, you have had that consistent sort of anti-hero vibe, which I think is very fun. And I felt that it was missing.
Yeah.
Just.
Yeah, let's just talk about the movie. I want to know just real quick, without much explanation, because we'll dive into it.
Yeah.
What's your score of this movie out of 10?
5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any choice words?
I think what I will say is that I found it very enjoyable, but I wouldn't be in a rush to rewatch it.
Okay.
Like I'm glad I saw it, but I wasn't blown away, and I thought it was quite slow at parts.
Okay, fair. It's interesting that it's funny, we were talking about this when we were before the movie. We were talking about like what do numbers mean to each individual person? Because number 5, like a 5 out of 10 to you is, I liked it. There were some slow parts, but I wouldn't rewatch it. That's a 5. But we were talking before it. I was like, a 5 is, to me, a 5 is, I liked some of it, I disliked some of it, and I probably wouldn't watch it again, but I won't recommend that people don't watch it.
I think that's kind of where I'm at. I think for me, it was kind of like average at best, and then there were parts I really, really liked, and then there were parts I didn't like so much, and it just kind of all averaged out to a bit of, yeah, I think I had a fun time watching it.
Yeah. I think I'm notorious for giving like nicer reviews, or at least if I'm going to number it, because I enjoy most movies, and I think that the MCU, even at its worst, is still like okay. We just have raised our bars over time, because I
was about to say, I need to caveat this, that not even like Marvel, my bar was high because of Taika. Like, I love What We Do in the Shadows, I love his sense of humor, so I was really ready for some like good, like you said, what was I expecting coming into this? If I had to pick a word, chaos. And I was looking forward to the best kind of chaos.
Yeah.
So the bar was high.
Yeah. You're right. I have an expectation from a Taika Marvel movie since we've gotten Ragnarok. And Ragnarok was great, and I loved Ragnarok. Did you like Ragnarok?
I loved Ragnarok.
Okay, cool.
But I was so ready to hate Ragnarok, so maybe it's like the reverse of that.
Yeah.
Like even just when they announced the logo for Ragnarok, and I was like, why does it look like it's in Pantones? Like, this is not Norse in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
And then they did like the trailer, and Loki had his little IKEA knives, and I was like, what is this?
And as someone who like, we both know about Ragnarok from mythology, and then I remember the Ragnarok from the Marvel comics. Like, I was expecting them to go that route, like a literal, just gods just die. Like, essentially kind of like what happened here, but in that one, just gods are dying. There's the final stages of Asgard, and then have them be reborn. But
I felt like there was a lot they could have done with Ragnarok that would have linked it in with the Infinity Stones, like the idea that they were created at the foundation of the universe and the universe unraveling. But I wasn't expecting it to be like just Asgard is dying. I thought it would be a bit of a bigger, more encompassing threat, especially given how much of that film does not take place on Asgard or on Earth.
No. But they found a way to like make it work, Ragnarok.
And to tie these films together, one of my, again, like I say, big Marvel fangirl back in the day, lots of fan fiction read, I have a soft spot in my heart for the Warriors 3 and Sif. And so when they just killed the Warriors 3 off in Ragnarok, and then not only that, but then every time Thor would be like, my best friend died, and he'd be talking about Heimdall instead of like Volstagg and like Vandal and all of those guys, especially how fun they are in the Dark World where they're all threatening Loki, and then Vandal's just like, you know, your grace hasn't improved or whatever. I felt like this film being like listing all the people Thor had lost and then being like, and that guy, and that guy. It was like part, at least you're acknowledging it, and part, oh, this is salt in the wound of how much you did not acknowledge these people's deaths.
Right. Because I thought it was, when they do mention it in the movie, they kind of make fun of, like, I don't remember that guy's name. I don't remember, you know?
Yeah.
Like, nobody knows who these people are kind of thing. But it's like, I remember the Warriors 3, and I remember they were used horribly. That being said, The Dark World, to me, it's not as bad of a movie as people, like, say, because people say it's at the bottom of their list. Like, I think Dark World might be a 5 out of 10 for me. Because even, like, it's not my worst Marvel movie. Doctor Strange is my worst Marvel movie.
I haven't seen Doctor Strange. I simply refuse. And the more of Doctor Strange I see in the other Marvel films, the less I want to watch his individual films. I just find him insufferable.
He's way more insufferable in that movie. Like, yeah. So it's even worse. To me, they do this thing in the Doctor Strange movie where they're kind of afraid to be like, it's magic. Like, they're afraid to go full, like, Harry Potter. And later on, they kind of go full Harry Potter, but they don't in this. It's like we have kind of Kung Fu energy ring. Mm-hmm. Well, we have the sling rings. We have, like, Kung Fu energy discs. And, like, we have this mirror dimension. And that's, like, it in the first movie. It's also
just, like, again, like, I was so into it, and Avengers had just happened, and that's what got me really into it. It's just such a good film, and we were all excited to hear what Marvel were going to do next. And we were like, oh, can we get like a female-fronted superhero film? Can we get like some diversity in there? And they announced Doctor Strange, and I think he's quite ethnically ambiguous in the comics, or at least all the images I saw had him sort of that way. And people were begging a brown actor to get the role. And then they announced Cumberbatch, and I was like, don't love this, but fine. And then I think they bumped Black Panther and Captain Marvel to fit in with Cumberbatch's filming schedule. And I was like, again, not great. And then they cast Tilda Swinton as a Tibetan monk. And I was like, I'm not seeing this film. Like, everything about this is just bad vibes to me.
Yeah. So the ethnic history of Doctor Strange is that in the first issue, he was drawn as East Asian. And that was quickly changed because he was drawn more pulpy, like the pulp comics of the time, or not of the time, but before that time technically. So he was drawn, like, he wasn't drawn in the classic Marvel way up until a certain point. But I think it was either one issue or two. But then they changed him to white pretty quickly. So, like, Batman had purple gloves in his first appearance. Like, we don't think about Batman with purple gloves. I don't think of Doctor Strange as East Asian. That being said, would it have been nice to kind of change it? Yeah, but I don't think Marvel back then was dealing with, especially back then, dealing with too many cooks in the kitchen.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Joss Whedon was trying to weasel his way to, like, be like, this whole universe is mine. Like, he was trying so hard to do that. And then when he didn't, and he couldn't accomplish that, he went over to DC, and then DC kind of banked on him to, like, make Justice League work, and to make that universe kind of a Joss Whedon universe, and that didn't work. So, what was I saying? Ike Perlmutter was the one who was saying, we can't do a Black Panther movie, we can't do a Captain Marvel movie. I don't want to do that. And then Feige pushed back. It's roughly my, you know.
I mean, I really don't know enough. It's more just like that was my reasoning for not rushing to see it, and then having seen him in other films, I just find him very annoying. And even just like really minor things, which are definitely more me, but I just physically cannot take Benedict Cumberbatch doing an American accent.
Yeah.
Personality-wise, I'm like, you just feel like a cheap Iron Man. Like,
well, yeah, his personality seemed like it was going to be a replacement. He's just kind of a arrogant middle-aged white guy. That was that's his vibe. But yes, I'm not. You don't have to see Doctor Strange the first one.
No.
His appearances later are way better. So also, if you don't like his appearances way later, then you really wouldn't like the movie.
No. I just rewatched the latest Spider-Man the other day, and him in that, I'm like, you're just so rude to this literal child. Like,
yeah. Also,
stop, dude.
I like the fact that Wong is Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah. And he's so salty about it.
He's salty about it because he thinks that, this is classic, like, his energy is that, like, you only got it because I was disappeared for 5 years, which is the same as you only got it because of affirmative action. You only got it because of a quota. Like, I feel like it's that energy to Wong. And Wong is clearly the more superior Sorcerer Supreme.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I have not seen the films, and even I've got that.
Yeah.
That
He's
vibe.
the only reason Wong's not there in No Way Home is because he has bigger things to do than help a, like, 17-year-old with his, like, universe bending. You know what I mean?
But then also, is it Ned, Spider-Man's friend?
Yes.
Yeah, like when he's like, oh, I think I have magic. Like, he's so dismissive. And I'm like, this is just, yeah.
Ned
anyway,
could have magic. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. When it comes to this movie, I was just gonna go on a tangent about how Benedict Cumberbatch, again, not in this movie, but Benedict Cumberbatch played Khan in Star Trek Into Darkness.
Oh yeah.
He played a character named Khan Noonien Singh is played by a guy named Benedict Cumberbatch. Okay.
I just think there comes a level, like, a lot of the time it's these decisions from on high, but when you're making a track record with your career choices of taking these sort of roles, I don't know. I think I'm probably being cruel. I'm not the biggest fan. I find him very difficult to watch as an actor because I feel like I never see him as a character. I always just see him as Benedict Cumberbatch in this. Like, he's almost too big for the films he's in.
Yeah. Is he bigger over there than he is over here?
He is, but also I think the internet kind of ruined him for me, especially with, like, Sherlock.
Was Sherlock bigger over there than it is over here? Because
Sherlock was
BBC
huge,
thing.
and then it got a huge following of teenage girls, and then the showrunners hated the fact that the following was teenage girls and just tanked their own show effectively. Was my perception of it. It was really big. Okay. I don't even know what he's been in since. I'm just not a fan.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Benedict Cumberbatch does not appear once in Thor: Love and Thunder, but we've. I will welcome any time to talk about my. I don't hate him, I just don't love him, and that's okay.
But you know who was also barely in this film? The Guardians of the Galaxy, despite dominating most of the, like, pre-press, I guess, for the film. They were in it so little. Yeah.
But I kind of foresaw that.
Right? I'm glad, because I think, again, like I was saying today, I was like I said, I was watching the Spider-Man film the other day, and I was like, I feel like Marvel's kind of forgotten how to do single people combat in, like, scenes. Yeah. Like, I feel like every single film recently has had, like, 5 or 6 main guys fighting, like, a whole army. So I was kind of glad that they swept the Guardians away just so we could, like, focus on, you know, Thor and Valkyrie and Jane. But even then it was still like, this could just be Thor.
Yeah. I think this movie to me is a 7 out of 10 because I accept. Okay, my big thing is it's way more comedic than Ragnarok.
I disagree.
You think Ragnarok is more comedic than this movie?
I found Ragnarok so funny, and I did not laugh very much with this one. I don't know if it was a slightly different kind of humor that I just did not gel with.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying this is funnier than Ragnarok. I'm just saying it's more comedic.
I think it thinks of itself that way.
Okay. Like, as a genre, I feel like it's more comedic.
I could see that.
I feel like the comedy affects the plot more than it does in Ragnarok.
I felt like Ragnarok was very, like, tongue-in-cheek, kind of gently mocking what we know these films to be. And I really enjoyed that as someone that loves these films. It was kind of like having a little in-joke. Like, yeah, these are ridiculous. They're still fun. And we're allowed to say they're ridiculous, but we still enjoy them. Yeah. Whereas I feel like because that did so well with Ragnarok, they were like, right, we're going to make this a really funny film. So you end up with, Thor naked and Zeus zapping him after, 10-minute long speeches.
Yeah.
And goats screaming as they collide into rocks.
I brought this up on yesterday, a show we did yesterday. I feel like the goat screaming was funny. Was it Jason Momoa voicing it? Like, I felt like that scream was such, like, when Jason Momoa does the hee-oo, like, kind of Hawaiian, like, thing that he does it in Aquaman. He's done it on, like, interviews or whatever. I just feel like the goat screaming could have been him. I don't think it was. Maybe it was.
I cannot stress how much I have not considered who was making the sound of those goats, and now it's all I want to know, like, who was doing it. Yeah. I wouldn't put it past it being Jamaica.
Or like Alan Tudyk, because Alan Tudyk always does, like, recently he's just been doing animal voices for movies. Mm. Like, you know Alan Tudyk, right?
Mm.
He's
I probably know him from things, but like as a name.
Tudyk. If you saw him, you would know him. He's in a lot of stuff, but he voiced like Hey the chicken in Momoa.
Oh yeah. And
like he's in Firefly. That's Alan. He's Wash the pilot in Firefly. You'd know him if you saw him because he's been in a bunch of movies. He has a very memorable face, very unique. Oh, he was in The Knight's Tale. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm just saying that because that seems British, but is. Of course, you know him from the historical documents, A Knight's Tale.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The documentary, I was trying to look up I'm like doing like two things at once, but basically what was I saying? Where was I going with it?
We were talking about the goats.
Oh, the goats screaming. Okay. Yeah. But before the goats screaming, the comedic, like the genre being like, I feel like the genre is more comedy. Like Ragnarok is funnier and more concise. And this one, I just feel like, let's just have fun. It was very cartoony. And I think my biggest point about this movie is that it seemed like an episode. Like Iron Man 3 does it the same way. I felt like Iron Man 3 was just an episode in Iron Man. This seemed like just an episode in Thor.
I really liked Iron Man 3 because I think it broke Iron Man down to the bare essentials and just kind of gave us like a fun Iron Man film, which I think was kind of what I was expecting from this as a Thor film, going into it not expecting Loki to play a big role, Asgard not existing anymore. I was like, I feel like this is going to be more about Thor, but then it became more about Thor and Jane. And I mean, I'll get onto that, but yeah, I agree. And I think one of my biggest disconnects with the film, and it's partly why I rated it kind of lower, was that it felt very much to me like a kid's film. It was like, hey, we've got this group of children and they're going to lead the charge and it's all going to be really heartwarming. And then at the same time, you've got Zeus making jokes about orgies, and it just really jarred to me, like this kind of very adult humor and very childish humor at the same time.
Would kids pick up on the word orgy? Because
I was talking to my partner because he saw it at the same time at a different cinema, and he said there was a kid like 2 rows behind him asking his mom what an orgy was.
It's like that's how you were conceived.
I think they mention orgies in Ragnarok as well, so maybe it's just like a petty gripe. But I felt very much like there were just moments which were just very slapstick, and I'm not the biggest slapstick fan.
There was a lot of slapstick. I like slapstick. It's different in this. You're right that like I thought about it when I was watching it. This is the first time that we get like a bunch of kids get kidnapped, which I felt like after 20-something movies of Marvel, I figured like that plot or that trope would have happened earlier. But I'm surprised it took this long to have a kids are kidnapped plot.
Quite liked the villain. I thought he was like really engaging. I felt he fell flat at the end. But like when he's scaring the kids, like that could genuinely be quite a like dark moment.
Yeah. I don't think he was gonna kill the kids though. Like I never thought that. Did you feel that?
I thought it would have been an interesting moment if he did, to kind of show just how much the sword has corrupted him from who he was at the start.
Yeah. I feel like his motivation, and because Gore is from the comics, and I forget exactly what happens to him, but like it's way more involved. The story is way more involved. And someone online said it. I can't claim this thought as my original thought, but then I was like, oh, it's totally right. This movie should have been half an hour more, and it should have been, instead of, but not half an hour of more slapstick, but half an hour of more character moments, because I feel like every character was sort of rushed through things and sort of wasted.
Yeah, so my day job, I edit books, and I feel like there was a part of me that just wanted to reach out and give the film a good edit, because I felt the pace really slowed in some points, mainly for the sake of, I think, humor, you know, like when Zeus is giving this massive monologue that doesn't really drive the plot anywhere, and in return, like, you know, coming back to Thor and Jane, I really like Thor and Jane, but I haven't seen Thor or like Thor the Dark World in like maybe 3 or 4 years. And I was like, I feel like I need a refresher. You're just asked to root for this couple. And you could have done like one grounding scene to show like the chemistry they still have, but they were both just instantly like, I'm still in love with you. And I felt like they needed to build that up a bit more and have like more of an arc. And yeah, there just needed to be the character.
Did they bring that? Sorry, did they bring that up before Korg does his talking about it?
No. Oh. I think it starts with Korg kind of. Does it? I don't know, maybe.
Do you feel like Korg talking about it is enough to kind of refresh us?
Absolutely not.
Oh, okay.
I think that's fine to remind us who they are, but to make us actually root for it, and it's such a driving plot arc, like Thor's desire for love, Thor's desire for companionship versus his fear of losing that love, and then obviously what happens. Like, that's such a big part of it, to have that, like, is it worth loving this person for even half an hour if that's all I've got left with them? And you're just kind of asked to go into it at a point of these two are in love. And I feel like they could have just built it up a little bit more so we kind of see them falling in love again. Like, maybe even like Thor very reluctant to do that, but then it happening anyway, rather than both of them going into it like, I still love you and I'm still hurt by how we ended things.
Yeah.
I think if they just did even the slightest bit more work in getting us as an audience to root for that, and I say that as someone that has historically rooted for that relationship, I still needed that sort of moment, then I think the payoff at the end would have been a lot bigger, and instead it felt kind of emotionally cheap.
That's fair. I need more time. I just need more time. I needed more character moments, and I felt like we didn't get it in this movie because it was very... plot driven. I needed more gore. I needed some you could have just done 2 minutes more of gore. We could have like fleshed him out a little bit more, because I think in the comics, and don't quote me on this, it's been a while since I read it, I think Gore the God Butcher gets so much power essentially that like he is kind of a god, and there's kind of a realization of his part, like, oh, I will be kind of the last god. I'm the god of god butchers, you know?
And maybe it's my mythology brain. But I really struggled with what it meant to be a god in this film versus what it's meant historically. And I think, you know, I'm coming into this with almost zero comic book knowledge, so maybe it's something you can explain.
Yeah.
But the first Thor film, it's very much like, wait, could they actually be these characters from our mythology? Is it possible that we had contact with these beings and they turn out to be aliens? And then the mythology in this film seemed to be more, every planet has their gods, and these gods have power on this planet because people believe in and worship them. That's obviously not what Thor is to us on Earth. Like, they're aliens on another planet. And so godhood is kind of given this status. And then you have that point where they go to that planet and there are all the different gods there. And some of them are like, well, universe mythology, and some of them are Earth mythology. So again, it's kind of like the way that the first gods are presented as like the god of these people in this place who very physically exist and help those people, versus the gods from like Earth mythology. I kind of wanted to know like how they got there, like I just feel like mythology in general was kind of presented as like stories that trickled down through these chance encounters with gods on planets and like alien encounters with Earth. And then now it was like mythology was something that was built in a very specific place and had its own power.
Yeah. I mean, in the comics, the gods are derived from the belief of their people. And so, but then like Norse gods shouldn't be as powerful as they are, but I think there might be, I don't know exactly. I don't know exactly how it works, but basically they're supposed to be more powerful based off of the belief of their, constituents, I guess. But
I just think if that's the case, you could do some really fun stuff with like pagans on like, like give me a villain that's like a modern pagan that is like all in on their god. Like that sounds like so much fun, and it would be a really
like American Gods
though.
Have you seen American Gods or read it?
I have read it and I've seen the first season.
Yeah.
But like if that is what this world is suggesting, that the belief in the gods gives them power, then I think there's a lot that you could do in terms of like Thor struggling with his powers as getting a mass surplus when all these people do believe in him, following New York. And
yeah, I feel like this runs a little bit different to me in the in these movies. I feel like yes, in the first Thor movie, they're like, oh, they're kind of like aliens that came down to Earth and then were revered as those gods. In this, I feel like what we've gotten to is gods are kind of just a step. They're not aliens. They're a step up.
Yeah.
So, but then they like to meddle or like in the affairs of their planets, like Gore, that god that Gore kills first. Like he's just like, I'm just hanging out here, like having fun. Like I don't care about the people who are dying, and
that felt very Greek to me, just the way that he kind of like went all off as soon as he was like insulted. That felt very like Greek mythology. Like, I don't care when my followers are having all this happen to them, but they dare insult my name, I'm sending a plague.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just Greek gods that send plagues. Yeah.
No, but you know what I mean? That sort of like that ego-driven god, like very like gods as humans, just times 100.
Right. The pettiness of gods. But I feel like in this with Omnipotent City, we're dealing with like gods that like the Greek gods have nothing left to do, so they're just hanging out in Omnipotent City. But if we're thinking about like the gods of like that we see in Moon Knight, we see the Egyptian gods. The Egyptian gods aren't hanging out in Omnipotent City because they either are like restrained of some sort, like on Earth or whatever. Like they still feel like they have duty over here. They have
it just felt like the Norse gods was something very different to the Greek gods in a way that like just left me a bit confused, which I think this film was designed to do like mass world building and stuff like that. It was kind of like, just roll with it, which is fine. I'm just very nitpicky with this sort of lore and stuff like that. I'm like, but hang on, if the Norse gods are aliens, shouldn't all the other gods be aliens? That I
mean, they kind of are, but they're kind of not, right?
Exactly, and that's kind of where I ended up. And then similarly, like, are these actually the Greek gods? Because there were a lot of scantily clad women and men surrounding Zeus. And I was like, are they supposed to be the other Greek gods, or are they like the Ganymedes of this universe? Which then led me down a very fun like wormhole of like, are these actually like versions of the Greek gods, or are they so far removed from what the Greek gods are? Like, like the post-credit scene with Heracles or Hercules. Like he was made a god in mythology, but he's like a very minor god.
Yeah.
Whereas this seemed kind of like extrapolated and just having a lot of fun with it. And yeah, I would like to see more. I feel like you could have had such a fun moment at the end where all the gods kind of charge into battle to help defeat Gore at the end.
Yeah.
But I wasn't disappointed that didn't happen, but I felt like they really built up this omnipotent city and then did nothing with it.
Yeah. I'm glad they didn't destroy it. I was afraid Gore would just come in and butcher everybody.
Yeah, something like that, like some big thing to happen, but it was kind of just like,
I'm glad he didn't come in and kill everybody, right? Like it would have destroyed any potential.
I agree, but I think you could have done something more.
Yeah. I like the fact that, like, I think the theme of the movie is gods are selfish, right? Like, even Thor's being, even when he is closing himself off to love, it's for a selfish reason, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely have moments, especially at the start, where he's like, you know, single-handedly destroying an army. And, you know, I think it takes you back to that original Thor film where he's like, well, why can't I commit genocide? You commit genocide all the time.
Yeah.
Like, that's just what we do. And then Loki tries to commit genocide and they're like, hey, what are you doing? Like, where would
Not
you get
the
this
right type. Not the right type of
wrong genocide, dude.
Yeah.
Which is very much like that sort of idea of what a god is and what a king is, and, you know, how that rule changes. I felt like Thor was very lost to me in this film. Like, the idea that his like big payoff is like, I think it comes back to Loki not being in it. Like, for so long, that's been such a driving force of the Thor films. That sort of, what ties do you owe your family, and, you know, how many. It's all family centered, and then suddenly, like, okay, we're gonna make it love centered. Thor just needs to be a dad, and I don't know. I don't think giving Thor new people to love really helps him address the losses in his past.
We're talking about the ending.
Yeah, I think there's a level to which, if we went down this route, then every single superhero film should just end with the superhero in therapy. But I didn't feel massively happy with the payoff in this film. I was like, okay, I'm fine now, I've got a kid. And it was like, oh, I don't think you're fine.
I think he realized, I mean, if we're talking about the end, I was thinking about it, and I'm such a sap. Because when Korg goes, and they're known as Love and Thunder, I just wanted to cry because I just wanted to feel something, because I'm sappy that way. But I'm trying to figure out words to express, like, his problem is he can't get attached, right? He can't get attached because he will live forever-ish, and the other people are mortal and they won't. And so what's the use of loving if you are losing, right? Mm-hmm. If there's a possibility of loss, why love in the first place? But I think that with, I don't know her name. Is her name just Love? Like, do we get a real name?
I'm not sure. I think we did. I can't remember.
For some reason, there's another comic character that, like, that looks like her, but I don't know whether it's actually her. Anyway, I don't know her name, but the point being is, like, he is loving in a different way, right? Like, loving as an uncle or a father figure. Is just a different type of love, but it's still love. And sometimes what you miss in life might be one and not the other. I don't know. I'm still working that out.
Yeah, I think it comes back to, for me, quite a lot of what I was left feeling with this film was just like a lack of payoff and like missed potential. Like, we've now had Valkyrie in 2 films where all she's done is make flippant remarks about all the people she's lost and drink alcohol. I would like to thank Taika specifically for putting Tessa Thompson in a suit and making her do an Old Spice commercial. That felt like it was done just for me, and I enjoyed it. But it was kind of like, you've got these 2 characters that are going through a lot. Like, let them be badasses together. Like, either make her a part of it, or make her more of a side character, because at the moment she's not getting enough.
She definitely got pushed to the background. I didn't like that. I was told explicitly that this movie would be her on searching for a queen. That's what I was told. Yeah.
Well, didn't Natalie Portman say that this movie is so gay before, like, at one of the premieres?
Yeah.
It was not.
Yeah. Like, people are talking about, like, the bisexual energy of the movie, and I think the energy might be, but...
Yeah.
But it
let's
wasn't...
face it, the bar is low with a Marvel film, isn't it? But I also feel like we need to have this conversation about how Bury Your Gays is about more than just killing a character off. after they get some form of gay happiness. It's also about punishing a character immediately after they get some kind of gay happiness. So I felt that her like admitting that she'd lost her girlfriend and was drinking and then immediately nearly dying, and also like that sort of is she dead moment. It was like, I don't like that you're kind of playing with that what verges on a bury your gays trope. Like that still puts me on edge. That still makes me as a queer watcher uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then B, it was like, okay, but like what's the point of throwing this in here if you're not going to do anything with it? Like,
which is weird for Taika.
I mean, he did do the two dads. I feel like I'm not going to, and this again is definitely me just like coming to conclusions of my own accord, but I feel like he's doing what he can within the big Marvel Disney corporate machine.
Yeah.
It's just
Korg
disappointing.
The whole Korg thing.
Oh yeah. Like if there are two moments that I absolutely loved in this film, it was Valkyrie being bored with all the press stuff she's having to do and the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson joke. Like that was it. Those were my highlights.
Was that the joke?
I think so. The Rock that he got with was called Dwayne. It was Dwayne "The Rock."
Okay. I didn't realize. I'm gonna search and see whether like other people like picked up on that.
I don't know. Maybe that's just me putting to and like coming to a conclusion that was not intended. But I chuckled most harshly.
Yeah, somebody says it was a Dwayne "The Rock" joke.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. I didn't realize that. I mean, they gave him like a mustache, which is not Dwayne, but it would have been better if he like did an eyebrow.
Yeah.
And then
they definitely could have lent into it.
They could have lent.
But similarly, they did again. Like it felt quite repetitive to me, where they had the, "Oh God, is Korg dead? Nope. Oh God, is Valkyrie dead? Nope." And it was like, and Sif as well. Like, "Oh God, is Sif dead? Nope." And it was just like, okay, either kill someone off or stop being like, "Are they dead?"
I'm surprised. Like, they built up like. Well, not built up. They showed Sif in her like comic accurate outfit. And then I was like, is she going to die on that field? And they're like, you only go to Valhalla if you die in battle. You would just, I don't know what did he say what would happen if she died not in battle? But
I think in Norse mythology, if you die in battle, you go to Valhalla. And if you die outside of battle, you go to Hela's realm, which I think is just called Hell.
Yeah.
God, it's been a while.
HEL.
It's HEL, yeah.
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 So then she was like,
described as like the realm of fog and stuff like that. But yeah, it's like that's the gloomy place you go if you don't. But we were discussing this. So the after credit scene where Heimdall welcomes Jane. Yeah. Heimdall fell in the same battle Loki fell in, like in this timeline. So is Loki also in Valhalla? Because I think that is deeply hilarious. Like the idea that all these people on Asgard that are dead, like, finally paradise. And then Loki turns up like, hi. And they're like, this is not paradise. Like, who let this fucker in?
I think Loki would be in Valhalla. And because the Loki that we see in the TV show, by the way, the TV show, I've been ragging on it so much lately because it fucks up so much, like continuity and time travel and variance, and it just makes no sense.
I have a lot of thoughts about the TV show I would be more than happy to get into, but I think the biggest thing that Marvel screwed up on was the blip, because now every single film they make has to acknowledge the fact that half the population disappeared for 5 years, and it's like, guys, just start again. Like, we can wrap our heads around we're just doing this in like an alternate universe, especially now they've entered like that. Hopefully that will let some more stuff in, so you don't always need like, okay, we're going to set Captain Marvel in the 90s so that we don't have to explain all this like new stuff that's happened. I
don't think they're doing the blip anymore. Like, they're not talking about the blip really that much.
They did in a lot of the TV series.
Not Miss Marvel and not in Moon Knight.
No, Winter Soldier, Falcon, it was like the main driving force.
WandaVision,
and then obviously the
WandaVision, Falcon, Winter Soldier. I mean, that's it, right? Like, as far as TV shows? They didn't bring it up in Loki, because wouldn't have mattered.
Well, Loki, yeah, I mean, like, I find it really annoying because A, it's stupid.
I think they're skipping. I think their biggest problem is that they've set that the modern Marvel universe is in 2024, and so I think they're just kind of waiting for 2024 so we can kind of like catch up. I think that's the bigger problem.
I just think the thing, like, they just did the Spider-Man, as I say, and they had like all three, and it was great, and it was like, yeah, we're not struggling with the idea that all these Spider-Men exist in different universes. That's fine. You can just be like, right, we're going to do, you know, I hope they don't. I hope they give new heroes a chance. But they can just do like, right, we're going to do new Iron Man. It happens in like a new world. And like the viewers will be fine with that. They don't constantly
want them to do that.
I don't want them to do that, but I would be fine with them starting, like X-Men, for example. Like if they took a franchise like that and were like, this happens entirely outside of the MCU as we kind of know it, but like, that's fine. We don't need it all to happen in the same world all of the time.
I like you a lot and I respect you, but X-Men is like my favorite and I want it all in the same universe. I hate the multiverse.
That's fair. I was just using it as like an example of like, we don't need to build it in all of the time because then all you end up doing is not understanding half the film if you haven't watched 20 other films, or you spend like 15 minutes in a film explaining all the stuff that's already happened. It's just like sometimes you just want to watch a film without doing all your homework.
You haven't seen Moon Knight, right?
No.
I think you would like then.
I'm going to watch it.
It's on its own.
So insanely busy lately.
Yeah. Moon Knight is relatively on its own. Well, not relatively. It's perfectly on its own. It's like its own thing. So you won't have that problem with that. And then Miss Marvel is on its own. They don't mention the blip, but she is a fangirl of the heroes. So it does kind of need you to at least know like that those heroes exist elsewhere, right? But I think for the most part, they're trying to like figure out like they're always messing with the formula, right? That's what I feel like Marvel is. Marvel's original formula was like kind of dark and realistic. And like that got old fast, I think. Like, you know, you can only do so much with that. But I forget what I was getting with this. Like, so you don't have to like watch everything because I think that they're getting past that point. Whether She-Hulk deals with it, I don't know. She-Hulk's the next one out.
I think they need to go back to the roots a little bit. Like one of my favorite things of Avengers is that it kind of plays with that classic sort of who would win in a fight between so and so and so and so, and gives us all these like kind of mini battles between them, and it's like, cool, this is what I used to really enjoy about this sort of thing, those sort of hypotheticals and like what would happen. And as I say, like each big bad being bigger and badder just makes it really difficult to bring on the next one.
Right. And it's funny because back when Avengers 1 happened, the talks for Avengers 2 would be a smaller movie. Like, they were like, let's bring it back to... And I feel like they did not do that. They kind of did it with that, like, when they're hanging out and having a party scene of Age of Ultron, which is the closest we ever see the Avengers hanging out. But, like, even then, I know that you were into the fanfics and stuff. The fanfics will go with I
loved the fanfics. I didn't really want the fanfics to be the film. I understood that that would be effectively an Avengers sitcom, which I wouldn't say no to. It was a fun little spin-off TV show, but it's not really what I want from the main thing.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, I think if I look at the films I've liked most, I think it all comes down to a charismatic villain. And that's like the TV shows as well. Like Avengers, they were going to get like a group of villains, and then they were so impressed with like Tom Hiddleston's performance in Thor that they got him. And like Loki was excellent. Like he was so good in that. Similarly, like even like Hela in the last one, like she had like a sort of gravitas to her that really worked. And, you know, Captain America, Winter Soldier, there was something very like, yikes, we're seeing that happening with like drone strikes and stuff. Like that even when it was like, the villain is something as removed and as huge as Nazis, you still gave it a personable face of this doctor that was like, you know, and similarly, like the TV series, like Jessica Jones Kilgrave is so good. Like, I think what I missed in this film, and it was just like the potential that we had from that villain to be something a little bit more charismatic and a little bit more ominous.
Yeah. Again, I think more time. I feel like Gore needed more time.
I also felt like he never, like, I love that scene with him and the kids where he was like terrorizing them. I thought that was really dark and really like well done.
Yeah, but he wasn't also, I feel like he was terrorizing them, but like we're talking about when the worm came up and he like threw like,
yeah,
I feel like it was just for fun, right? I didn't feel like he was threatening the kids or that the kids were threatened by him. Right.
But I think that was fun. I think it was fun that he was doing that just because he could. I thought that added like that sort of, you know, villain who's evil sometimes just for the sake of being evil. And again, seeing how much that sword's corrupted. But I don't think we ever saw the threat of him. Like there wasn't a single time, and you might have felt differently, there wasn't a single time that I worried that Thor was going to die, in the same way that when Hela grabs Mjolnir, you're like, oh, damn. Like she's just shattered Mjolnir. There wasn't that moment of like, oh, damn, this could be close. He might not make it. You're just kind of never really in doubt in this one that it's all going to be fine.
Right. Yeah. I didn't think that Thor was going to die. Thor, you know, I didn't think Valkyrie was going to die. And then I actually didn't expect Jane to die.
I thought as soon as they mentioned the wish at the center of the universe, I figured that was going to be used to cure her.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't.
I'm glad they didn't, but that's kind of where I thought they were going with it.
I thought that's where they were going to go with it, too. I thought, weirdly enough, I was like, I'm glad they didn't go this way. I was like, are they going to do a thing where, because when Gore says, if I brought her back, I would be dead and she won't, like, with his daughter, he'd be like, she'd be alone. I thought he was going to go, yes, but you two... like I'll wish for Jane to be alive.
I was concerned about that because it would have felt very out of character.
Right. Gore wouldn't wish for Jane to live. Like
I did think his wish was a bit limited anyway. He could have wished that all the dead children in the universe come back to life.
A reverse Thanos?
Yeah.
Kind of like oh no, but then we get what, for all of eternity? Like
I'm just saying, if there's one wish at the center of the universe and you use it to bring one person back, that's quite limited in your scope of things you could wish for.
I think that's all he wanted, though. You know?
Yeah, but he could have wished, I wish that I live a long and happy life with my daughter. And then they both would have lived. You know, like, I'm sorry, I'm definitely someone that would be like, hey, Genie, I would like unlimited wishes, please.
Yeah.
But I was just really like, oh, this seems like a bit of wasted potential of all the things this superpower could do.
I also think that Gore is not the smartest, and he's very...
No. He was also like, he changed his mind. He hadn't really thought it through what he was going to ask for. So I do get it, but...
Yeah, I think he wasn't smart, and he wasn't... Like, he was just going to... Like, he was short-sighted, right? He was just like, kill all the gods, get to eternity, you know? Well, it wasn't even kill all the gods. That wasn't even his goal, right? Was he killing gods for information? Like,
no, he was just killing the gods because he hated gods because the sword...
But the goal was to get to eternity's gate, right?
But so that he could then wish all the gods dead, I thought.
Okay, yes, he was going to do that, but he didn't have to do that by hand. All he needed to do is get the axe, right?
Okay.
That's all he needed. He needed the axe, but he probably needed the information to get he didn't know he needed the axe, right?
He knew he needed the Bifrost, and I think he knew he needed the axe to open the Bifrost.
Right.
Because that also confused me, because they were like, all he needs is the Bifrost, and then they summoned the Bifrost to the planet to escape, and I was like, oh no, is that going to trigger it? But then it was like, no, he needs the axe so that he can direct it here.
Yeah.
And then also it was like, the Bifrost doesn't work to get you to that planet. It can just be like used with the goats, but it's enough to get you off the planet.
Yeah. By the way, I didn't notice that Ares and Belligerent Pacifist were talking in chat. What's up? Sorry, I didn't see you because I was looking up some other stuff. Ares says, I was hoping that Gore was going to wish for his daughter and Jane to live so they could be a happy family together.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that could have worked.
Yeah.
I think for me, I don't hate her dying because I think it would have been a bit cheap if they just did a quick, she lives. But at the same time, like, I know that this is something that happens in the comic books, right? Like Lady Thor has cancer.
Yeah.
At the same time, I was like, is this really another iteration of Marvel killing off a female character to further the male main's character development?
Yeah.
And I don't think it was quite as cheap as that, because there was a lot more like character development that went into it. I think it would be a bit fairy tale if it was like suddenly they both live.
Yeah, well, a wish is already a fairy tale enough thing, right?
Yeah.
It breaks our understanding of like actions have consequences.
But I thought Jane herself in this film was interesting. Like
she was different. She was almost a different character.
I don't remember her being quite, and I'm willing to put quite a lot of this down to having a terminal illness, but I don't remember her being quite so rash, so headstrong, so hitting a thing with a hammer will solve everything, and quite so like fluttery in love. So I was really hoping that at the end, what was going to save the day wasn't going to be her access to the hammer. It was going to be her like scientific knowledge or something, you know, like something intrinsic to who she is as a character.
Yeah.
Also, why did they do the whole like Thor asked the hammer to look after Jane thing? Why could Jane just not be worthy?
Because I think it works different in the comics than it does in the movie.
Okay.
That's what I think. Because like in the comics, somebody was pointing out that like in the comics, there's a deep enchantment of the hammer being only being able to be lifted by the worthy. But then somebody else pointed out in the movie, the hammer doesn't have that enchantment. Odin puts that enchantment only in the first movie for Thor to lift the hammer. Like, it's not inherent to the hammer itself. It's just like a movie plot point.
But I felt like they built a lot up around, you know, like even that scene in Age of Ultron where they're all trying to lift the hammer, and then like they're discussing like if you put a hammer in an elevator, will it go up? And
then Vision carries it. Yeah, that's true. But also the hammer is broken, so maybe there's a whole like if Vision went to the hammer, I don't think the pieces would come together and create like I don't know. I think there's just a secondary enchantment. Couple of things just to shout out Belligerent Pacifist and Ares. Sorry, they've been talking for a while and I didn't see them in the chat. They're on Twitch because we're live streaming to 3 different platforms: volume.com/The Keeg Show, twitch.tv/The Keeg Show, and youtube.com/The Keeg Show. Belligerent Pacifist says, I freaking love Benedict Cumberbatch because of Sherlock, and I'm no teenage girl. So there we've been talking shit on
I'm absolutely not slamming like teenage girls or like Benedict Cumberbatch.
I'm slamming Benedict Cumberbatch. But
I'm slamming my experience of all that circa Tumblr 2010.
Yeah.
And how that has stayed with me.
Yeah. And then Ares, or Belligerent Pacifist also comes back and says, voice of the goats is Taika Waititi. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's cool. And then I don't know what that's in relation to, but Doctor Strange, MOM, talked about the blip, and the movie did feel a bit short. That's what Ares says. Yeah, I mean, I think we would have gotten a lot of benefits by having the movie be... Because the movie, from start to finish, is 2 hours, but a lot of that's end credits. It was like an hour 45. Like,
well, I also just think there were a lot of things that felt really slow that could have easily been trimmed down.
Like, what did you find that was slow? I didn't find anything really slow. I was kind of there for the ride.
Yeah, I think the Guardians bit at the start was quite slow. I think the New Asgard, like the kind of conversation in the politics hall was quite slow. Like, not necessarily slow, like it was just, it could have been trimmed and you wouldn't have lost stuff. I've already mentioned that I thought the Omnipotent City stuff went on too long and could have been done a lot quicker.
It was weird. Yeah. The Omnipotent City, like, you know how I was saying like Ragnarok was like better with their comedy, but this had more comedy. I feel like Ragnarok, to me, the comedy doesn't affect the... When you have comedy in a superhero movie or comedy in a movie in general, and you have a sequel or whatever, the comedy can't affect the fabric of the universe. For instance, in Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, the comedy and campiness affects the fabric of the universe that you can't create a sequel to Batman and Robin and then bring it back to being dark again. Like, the rules of the universe are now like, that card, can't leave home without it kind of thing. In Ragnarok, I don't feel like it affected the universe. I feel like...
with the sole exception of Take Me Through the Devil's Anus.
Wait, what?
The Devil's Anus in Ragnarok, the wormhole. Like, I would say that's the only time it kind of affected the world building, because it then was like, cool, wormholes are like a thing that couldn't like jump you.
Oh.
Or Or do you mean in like a more literal sense?
I mean like, okay, so in this one, in this one, it was like, here's the god of bow. 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 Like, that was an absurdist changing the fabric of the universe for the sake of a joke, you know?
Yeah, okay, fair.
Like, it from now on, we would be like, technically in the continuity of the universe, like, a piece of food can have a god now. And thus it just says, there's the god of carrots. Carrot. Like,
yeah.
It's a bit different. So I feel like,
although I did love Korg's god sitting on a throne of scissors.
Yeah,
I love that they're continuing that.
That I found did not break the fabric. I was like, the Cronins have to have gods, and their god is Nini, and that makes sense.
Things like that, and like Thor being like, oh, I'm a master of disguise, and then grabbing a cloak is like, again, a nod to Ragnarok. Like, I enjoyed all that kind of stuff. I just felt there was a lot of humor that didn't chime with me.
Yeah, when the humor is derived from the characters, it makes sense, and the characters' choices.
Even like the little girl with the bunny rabbit with the lasers coming from the eyes, I did not like that. I was
you did not like that?
I didn't like it. I think by that point I was just very cynical. Like,
okay, isn't that what a kid would do though? For me, I can write that off. I can write that off as...
I could have written it off as just another example of like that kind of humor that's just kind of repeating in the film. And like I say, like, I love Taika's sense of humor, and it is very on the nose sometimes. It is very stupid sometimes. But I felt like there was almost too much of it, and it got in the way of things like that character development. Like, we've known that Valkyrie hates being king, but also kind of likes being king for 2 films now. She was in one of the Avengers, right? And
she was in Endgame for sure.
And they didn't do anything. There was no line where she was like, Thor, will you come back? I hate doing this.
Yeah. No, I think she likes being king. Great. But again, also, I was promised she would get a queen. And all we got was a kiss on the hand, which I thought was cool. And
as soon as she jumped on that platform, I was like, if she does not flirt with any of these women,
she has to
be so mad.
Right. There was also some... I would hate to call this movie rushed, but there are a lot of shots that are cut in a way that it's like lazy. There were some lazy cuts, especially in action scenes specifically. So it'll be a scene where, like, I don't know if this happened verbatim, but like Thor will land, we'll get a landing shot, and then we'll cut away to another shot where he stands up. Or if he's gonna like jump up, it'll then cut to he'll be standing and then cut to a shot of him jumping. So I'm like, why can't you have standing, then jumping all in one shot? Especially in that fight scene with Guardians of the Galaxy bird people.
Yeah, I agree. Can we just take a moment for how incredible the soundtrack was of this film? Like,
you tell me about it.
It was just so much Guns N' Roses, and I think it's especially something that happens very well in the Taika Thor films. Like, the use of music is so good. I wonder if most of their budget went on getting access. Although I'm going to raise something really stupid here, but it's very on brand for me to raise this as a potential sticking point. They had Selvig back in this film.
Yeah.
Who is played by, what's his name? Stellan Skarsgård, who plays Bill in Mamma Mia. And in this film, they had ABBA in the soundtrack. So does ABBA canonically exist in this world? Does Mamma Mia the movie canonically exist in this world? Does this mean that Selvig is like, hey, that dude looks like me in this movie?
You're channeling Tumblr thoughts right now. Because what is this a tongue-in-cheek thing, or you actually want to talk about it? Because I'm messing about, but it brought me great joy to think of that. Like, people do bring up the fact that, like, if Peter Parker brought up Star Wars and Samuel L. Jackson was Mace Windu in Star Wars, how do we have Nick Fury that is Samuel L. Jackson? There's multiple explanations for that, right? Like, Nick Fury just looks like Samuel L. Jackson. There's one, that's just that. Or two, it's not Samuel L. Jackson in their version of Star Wars.
Yeah, and I mean, before I love Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, but back when they were like talking about who everyone wanted to do that role, I really wanted Natalie Dormer, and then everyone was like, oh, but she's already been in Captain America as like the woman that randomly kisses Steve.
Yeah,
and I was like, I am willing to believe that there are two people that look the same. Yeah. I'm also willing to believe that Captain Marvel got her hands on some time traveling magic and used it to go snog Captain America. That seems like a great use
that's your Tumblr fan fiction brain too.
Again, I did warn you as I went into this, I'm going to raise something stupid, but it's on brand.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that I enjoy discussing, though. Like, I'm like, this is nonsense. I completely acknowledge this is nonsense. We're going to lean into the nonsense.
Peter Quill's mother is also in Captain America. Like, they've done ones with small parts. The biggest part, that was double cast, I think, is Michelle Yeoh. She's in the she's part of the Ravagers in the Ravager post-credit scene in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And then she's also Shang-Chi's aunt.
Oh, okay. So I think I grew up on like Doctor Who having like Freema Agyeman play Freema Agyeman's cousin before Martha was cast, and like Peter Capaldi already being in it. Like,
oh yeah,
it's fine. You suspend your disbelief.
Yeah,
but it is fun to just mess around with it.
I have a friend. I don't know if you watch like CW DC shows. Do you watch any of them?
I don't anymore, but I used to watch like Legends of Tomorrow and The Flash and Arrow. And,
so like it's all a connected universe. I have a friend who lives in Canada that's has played 3 different characters in the Arrowverse across 3 different shows. Like he was a security guard in Arrow at the beginning of his like career. He's acting in bigger and bigger stuff now. Shout out to Nathan. And then he was a motorcycle hitman in Batwoman, and it was a bigger part. And then he ran for mayor of Smallville and Superman and Lois for like a 3-episode arc of Superman and Lois. And so like, good for him. It's the same guy. We just left to assume that in the Arrowverse, everybody, like, they're in real life, I'm sure there are people that look like us.
Yeah.
Right.
And I guess it's kind of like, do we take it to be that the people doing this stage show are legitimately Matt Damon and Melissa McCarthy in this universe? They're really big name actors that have decided to get involved with this stage show. Or are we like, this is just random people played by these actors? Like, there are 2 ways to look at it.
I have never thought that they would be the real actors, but
I think
they're Asgardians though, right? They're Asgardians because they were on.
Well, I'm not bringing up Tumblr brain again, but my favorite thing I ever saw was like, do you think Loki just asked everyone on Earth who the best actors were and then kidnapped them to put on his little stage show? Which I don't think happened, but I much prefer the idea that is exactly what happened.
Yeah. But Luke Hemsworth, that would have been a weird
exactly
choice.
Like that's another one where it's like, oh, do the Hemsworths exist in this universe?
Right. If that would be the case,
it's fun to say. That's another one though that I thought went on too long in this film.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That scene did go on too long. They could have just had. Well, they could have just done more rushing through it.
Yeah.
Also, why would that plate end at Hela breaking Mjolnir?
No, it wouldn't have.
Or they just ended there?
I loved the cruise ships at New Asgard.
What's that?
I loved all the cruise ships outside New Asgard.
I liked that kind of world building where like they obviously would be a tourist destination, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I
actually thought when you saw the kids kind of looking out the window at the battle scene, I thought they were like tourist kids that were like, real like Viking battle. I didn't realize that they were actual Asgardian children.
Yeah. How did you feel that Heimdall had a child that we hadn't seen?
I didn't care too much, really. I was like, sure.
Did you like him though?
Fine.
Or did you like any of the children? Did any of the children stand out to you?
Yeah, I didn't dislike it. I just didn't really have much of an opinion. I was like, listen, you've got a group of kids and you need to make one of them the leader. You might as well make it the child of someone else.
Yeah.
Whether that makes sense or not. It's part of why I dislike them always being like referring to Heimdall as like Thor's closest friend. Because certainly in Thor and in the Dark World, maybe a little bit less in the Dark World, but definitely we never see them bond. He kind of goes from like friend of my dad that's like basically my nanny to like my best friend.
That's like Ragnarok is when they finally, like when they say like, oh, he was my best friend or whatever. Like, because when he's fighting the war or like the battles in Asgard on the underground or whatever, like that's the only, like in Dark World they don't say he's my friend.
No, and in Dark World up until that point the focus is still on the Warriors 3 and 6.
Yeah.
And then Ragnarok, they're like, we're going to kill the Warriors 3 without even acknowledging who these people are.
Right.
And then we're going to refer to Heimdall as his best friend. And it was like, when did this happen?
Right. With, I want to know your opinion on why they made a little bit about Astrid versus Axel. Was it a teaching moment to parents to accept your child's name change? Is that...
I don't think it... If that was... So I thought that. I was like, okay. But then they didn't. Like, I think it would have been... Like, I think if that was the purpose of it, then they should have had someone be like, hey, Thor, he gets to decide what his own name is. You know, like, call him out, move on.
Well, then they call him Axel from then on, though, right? After that first thing, he's like, your father gave you a strong Viking name like Astrid. And he's like, I'm Axel. And then he's like, okay, fine, Axel. After that point, everybody calls him Axel.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that like Thor would push back in the beginning, and it wasn't just like, oh, you're Axel now? Okay, you're Axel now. And they made a little bit
I think it was also
not accepting.
I think it was also just like, given how much Guns N' Roses is in the soundtrack, and like the lead singer is Axel, and then it was like, oh, I got it from like an Earth band. I think it was just Taika having like a bit of fun with one of his favorite bands, I would assume. Because I would have loved that if it was like, you know, hey, parents, be fine if your kid wants to change their name or their pronouns or like anything about themselves. But I don't think if that was the intention, I don't think it succeeded.
Okay, because I thought that was the intention. Interesting. Weirdly enough, at the end credit scene when we see Jane and Heimdall in Valhalla, somebody in the audience was like, "Who's that?" to Heimdall, and I would say, part of me is like, "What? You don't remember?" But then also part of me is like, Heimdall should have been given a bigger role. It's Idris Elba. Like,
I feel like I think that's it. I think they made Heimdall bigger solely because Idris Elba became bigger. Yeah. And they were like, oh damn, we've got Idris Elba. We need to like make the most of this. But they didn't do the character work to justify that. They were just like, cool, he's like leading all the people out of Asgard now. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. But you don't really get the reminder of who he was before that.
Yeah.
Also, Heimdall in mythology canonically kills Loki. I think they kill each other, which I would have loved to have, given how much Taika is a mythology fan.
Yeah.
Again, I'm assuming from the decisions he's made in these films, it would have been nice to have like a bit more tension between them.
Yeah. Heimdall is also Sif's brother in mythology, right?
I don't remember that.
As far as I know, unless it's just a Marvel thing, but Heimdall, at least in the comics, is Sif's brother. But I'm fine with that. I don't think that's integral to the character. Like, people were like, why is he black? He has to be Sif's brother and blah, blah. And it's like, that's not the integral part of the character.
No.
But like, it was Idris Elba's wig also looked weird in the end credit scene. Because in Ragnarok, he has the braids, but they're back. And in this, they're just hanging. And so maybe I can understand, like, someone's like, who is that? Because the hair's a big part. I was in like maybe a half an hour into the movie, and I'm like, oh yeah, Thor has long hair again. I forgot that in Ragnarok he has short hair.
Yeah, I also didn't really like the amount of like pushback from fans following, what was it? Endgame?
Uh-huh.
The one where Thor
gains
put on weight.
Yeah.
The amount of like criticism that received about being fat phobic to then make the same sort of fat jokes at the start. seemed off to me. It felt kind of out of touch with the audience.
You mean part where he's working it off?
Yeah, I'm like fine with him, like, you know, I don't know, like exercising. Well, I do think it would also perpetuate a sort of fat people don't exercise thing, but I'm willing to suspend all of that for the sake of like Thor has looked this way historically. He put on weight because he was, you know, suffering from like immense personal loss. It makes sense that if he's doing all the things he used to do and changing that lifestyle, he would look the way he used to. But it was when they were actually making the jokes from like went from like dad bod to god bod and stuff like that, and I was like, do we even need a commentary on why Thor now looks the way he does? Could we not just have moved on without even adding that?
Yeah. Maybe they were just trying to say that this is an emotional journey and not I'm Thor and obviously six packs are better.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they were trying to do. They were trying, you know, it's an emotional journey as opposed to a narcissistic one, a perpetuating six-pack norms. By the way, I don't think he had a six-pack in this, which is good on him. You don't need a six-pack. You don't need to see every indentation.
No, I don't, especially given I think the actors don't drink water for like 48 hours before they film shirtless scenes. Yeah. I'm like, please stay hydrated.
I don't get how that works, because water is the only thing, like not only thing, but like water is like one of the things that keeps me from, not from eating, I eat enough, but like it keeps me hydrated and like whatever. But I can't imagine not eating, not drinking water. What are you doing? How does this work?
Yeah, I'm going to be a real stereotype here. I often forget to drink water. I drink a lot of coffee and a lot of tea. And then I'll be like, why do I have a headache? And my housemates will be like, have you drunk any water in the last 48 hours? I'm like, oh no, I should do that.
Get a gallon jug. Get a gallon jug and fill it up. Because when I drink water, I drink small, like I drink glasses and then I'm just like this and I'm filling it up. And I'm like, why am I doing this so much? And then I fill up a gallon and I'm like, okay, I can finish it in a day, you know?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Anyway, besides
that's neither here nor there.
Like, yeah, I'm glad that they weren't doing the same level of dehydration, even though it was purely a gratuitous naked Chris Hemsworth scene.
It was.
But you know, we put up with enough shots of Scarlett Johansson's butt. So
there was a lot of butt shots there, but not naked butt shots.
No.
But also, as a society, we treat guy butts different than girl butts. Guy butts are funny. Guy butts are like...
Even when you do see these sort of shirtless rippling scenes of the superhero, it's still the male gaze of like, this is what we wish we looked like, as opposed to
this is
the female gaze. Because the female gaze was very happy with Dad Bod Thor.
And the female gaze was happy with Robert Pattinson in the Batman, because he wasn't bulked up, right?
And he was, yeah.
So, but like, we would never see a butt shot of Robert Pattinson's The Batman, because it's not male gaze. It's not about power. It's about, you know, whatever the Batman was. I love the Batman, but still. I'm trying to, in the comics, I'm glad that they didn't cure her cancer. They didn't cure it in comics and they didn't cure it here. But in the comics, she does die in a big battle, and then she gets reborn later. Are we going to see that? You think that's what we're building up? Because why did that post-credit scene exist? To set us up for a next installment? Are we going to see Jane again?
Well, this like if Sif was going to not reach Valhalla for dying post-battle from a battle wound, surely Jane wouldn't have reached Valhalla for dying post-battle from cancer.
I think the point is her battle with cancer is the battle.
Oh, okay. I quite like that.
Yeah.
I also like the interpretation that Thor just was wrong and didn't realize that a battle wound would count.
Yeah. But I think it's that like she went down fighting. She accepted her cancer. She accepted it. She fought it. That was it.
Which is fine. In pure practicalities, wasn't the only reason she wasn't in the last film because Natalie Portman's was just too busy. So I can't see Natalie Portman reviving this role. Like, I think she's done with it. I
thought the point was to write her off and just kind of like be like, this is the end of her character. Yeah, you're right. But
and then Darcy in WandaVision, we obviously found out that she's now got like a PhD and can do like a lot of the same sort of stuff. So
yeah,
I think there are enough scientists. Although, again, I know I'm being real nitpicky here. One of my pet peeves in films is when they treat all kinds of clever as the same kind of clever. Mm-hmm. So when you've got Jane kind of working on the cure for her own cancer, I was like, can we please stop pretending that all science is interchangeable? This woman knows space physics.
Right. They do the same with Bruce Banner. Right?
Yeah, they do it all the time with like Bruce and with Tony. And I'm like, not all science. Yeah. When I think it's when Bruce says he's got like 3 degrees. And I'm like, do a post, like,
I think he says like 5 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then somebody was saying online that like degrees don't necessarily make you smart. It's an academic thing. So you're spending all this time to prove in academia that you have these degrees. Like, that's a lot of time. You don't have to do that if you're just trying to say that Bruce Banner knows everything.
Yeah. And I've got friends that are scientists that only have like BScs or like a master's at a push, and they do so much learning in an actual job. I feel like anyone that's got 5 degrees, I'm like, are your parents rich? Get a job.
Or like their honorary degrees that like you're so famous that like people are just throwing degrees at you, maybe?
But just like you don't need the characters that are these super smart scientists to be like bragging about their credentials all the time. Sometimes it's just enough to have worked in a field. I don't know. It's just like a real pet peeve of mine when they act like only the super intelligent, only the people with these very specific doctorates can possibly understand what's going on. Similarly, one of my most hated things is when they'll explain something that's very easy to understand, and then you'll have someone go, in English, please?
Yeah.
And it's like, we understood what was going on. And also, who says this?
In a similar vein, it was Doctor Strange in Multiverse of Madness when they're like, this is the Illuminati. And he's like, the Illuma whaty? Wait, did you see it?
I haven't seen it yet. I need to.
Oh. Okay. Anyway.
They just added it to Disney Plus, and they've got the Illuminati bit as part of the trailer. And you're like, I need to watch this.
Yeah. But there's literally, they go, and here's the Illuminati, and Benedict Cumberbatch, Doctor Strange, goes, the Illuma whaty? And it's like, you don't know the word Illuminati? Like, that doesn't make any... What?
I think he was more... I haven't seen it, but from that, I would interpret it as him being shocked that the Illuminati are a legitimate thing and not a
conspiracy theory. Yeah, but it didn't track that way.
No.
It was just seemed like a joke to be like, that's a long word.
No.
But we have to learn Benedict Cumberbatch? Like, talk about a longer word to learn. I felt like this was an episode of Thor. I feel like the change at the end of the episode, it was just kind of like, it's not a TV series, but like in this whole series, like Iron Man 3 was kind of like that too. Like, it didn't further the Thor story so much as it is just continue it, you know?
As I say, I would have really liked a nod to literally anything that happens in the Loki TV show, just to tie it all together a little bit more. Like, it could have been like the most minor thing. I don't know, like a TVA logo in a background or something, and maybe it was there and I missed it, but I would have liked that, because I think I kind of finished it kind of assuming that was going to be the last Thor film, and then they did the end credits with Hercules and then said Thor will return, and I kind of was left feeling a bit like I have no idea where this character goes from here, or where this story goes from here. And I think if they could have brought it back into the wider MCU storyline a little bit, I would have felt more like, I can't wait for the next Thor film, because instead I'm now like, I don't even know what to get excited for.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought at the end of this, I was like, oh, this does just seem like the end of the Thor movies. Yeah, but then he said Thor will return, so I'm like, okay, where? This might be the end of the solo Thor movies. He might just appear in like different cameo kind of appearances, or in Avengers, when they finally do an Avengers movie, right?
But I feel like Marvel put a lot of their... I think they put a lot of bank on Taika's success for them because of Ragnarok doing something so different and taking it into a new direction.
This has been a commercial success so far.
I would be intrigued to see how well that goes, because, as I say, my cinema was very quiet on opening day, and I think it might be like a box office success in the US, but not internationally, which...
Thursday night might be a different thing, too.
It would, but like, I don't know, I'm concerned about how much they spent on it versus how much they're recuperating. And, you know, I'm sure they'll give it a pass, but I feel like Thor will return. To me, that question would have hinged upon the success of this movie. If that makes sense. Like, I feel like Marvel have gone in very confidently going, Taika's going to take this all in a really new and exciting direction. And I'm not convinced that this film really delivered on that front.
Yeah.
Like, as we were both saying, the bar was so high because we love like Taika's work and that's on us. But like, it wasn't it for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. Ragnarok was just more cohesive. I think there could have been a couple fixes on this movie, but you know, I just wanted to talk about. They seem to have been merging the Greek and Roman pantheon because Russell Crowe was putting on this like Italian accent, but he would like flip back and forth between like homeland Italy versus like Italian mobster American Italian. Like Italian American accent.
I feel like I'm not familiar enough with what a Greek accent sounds like to like judge. I did thought the accent work was interesting. Just speaking from pure Hercules is the Roman name, Heracles is the Greek. Yeah. But I know that Hercules is in the comics.
Yeah.
So I would assume, and then it's a bit like Thanos is a Titan, which is Greek mythology. There is no one called Thanos, but I think it's supposed to be a nod to Thanatos, who's the Greek god of death. So I think
the Titans in that are Titans of the Moon Titan.
Oh yeah, like, and I get that, but I just mean Marvel in general as a whole in the comic books. They draw from a lot of mythology for a lot of really random things. Like even if it's just like the name of someone or like a power, they'll do like a little nod to Greek mythology because it's so like our culture is just it's everywhere. Like you can't read Shakespeare without nods to Greek mythology.
Yeah.
So I feel like however they've built it up in the Marvel comic book world is probably a nice blend of a lot of different things and then also taking it in very weird directions.
Yeah, it's kind of like Marvel has the Eternals, which also doesn't make sense sometimes with some of the things because they say that like they inspired some of the legends of the gods. But that's because in the comics, the Eternals was supposed to be their own thing and not kind of not be linked to the Marvel kind of universe, I think, in the beginning, and then they ended up linking it. So basically, you have characters like Makari, which is supposed to be like Mercury. You have characters like Thena, which is supposed to be like Athena, or Gilgamesh, or whatnot. Phastos is Hephaestus, right? But like also we have the gods that are named after that too.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess it's just like Thor, like go back to the basics, like the way that Thor and Loki and everyone are in the comics, very different to Norse mythology, but with a lot of fun nods along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I think they kind of use it as inspiration. They obviously go heavier with some characters in terms of what they're taking from mythology, like Thor and Loki.
Yeah.
But then they also very much, there's a lot of imagination and creativity that takes it very far away from mythology, even just in terms of like making Loki and Thor brothers. I mean, Loki in mythology is a fire demon, and then he's a frost giant. Like that's a very fun. He was
a fire demon. He was from Muspelheim.
Or
no, Muspelheim, I think. Is he?
He's
I could have sworn he was still a frost giant.
I'm fairly certain he's a fire demon. But
let's see.
I've also
giant. Although, okay. And the problem is
he's definitely like.
Oh no, I was just saying the problem is you have to like really look into the mythology, otherwise you get Marvel stuff. Like when
so I know a lot of Greek mythology in terms of where things come from. When it comes to Norse, even though I've read a lot of the ancient sources, they definitely get blurred in my brain with like Neil Gaiman's Norse myths. So I might be pulling from fiction, and in my head it's become fact.
It says
he's definitely god of fire. Like it's definitely one of the things that's attributed to him.
Interesting.
And he's definitely not a god.
Right. I think, he's a member of the Aesir. That's a tribe of deities that include Odin, blah, 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 blah. Oh, he is the god of fire, but it's very close to like why Prometheus would be. He's a cunning trickster. This is interesting. I always thought oh, okay. According to some sources, Loki is the son of Farbati, a Jotun, and Laufey. Loki's the father of Hel, or Hela.
Yeah, he's weird. The father and the mother of a lot of things. But yeah, just in terms of like them taking something as source and then taking it in really fun directions.
Oh yeah. Again, I know more about the Norse mythology from the comics than I do from like actual mythology, as opposed to Greek mythology and whatever, where I've looked into Greek mythology. But that's your wheelhouse.
That is my wheelhouse.
How do you feel about Hercules? Like, I mean, maybe he'll appear in another Thor movie and we'll get a Thor/Hercules thing. He seems to be out for vengeance against Hercules, even though Zeus is alive at the end.
Yeah, Zeus shouldn't have been alive.
I think it's because of his own lightning bolt, right? That's just what I chalked it up. I was like, you can't kill a god with their own thing, right?
It was also like such a quick death for someone so powerful. Like maybe they were like nursing him with ambrosia or something. Maybe that's like,
Yeah.
There's a lot of things.
Does ambrosia heal?
I said that and then I was like, actually, is that just from Percy Jackson? I think it does, because there's a lot in mythology about like stealing the gods' ambrosia and stuff.
Yeah. Because the gods can't die, right? In Greek mythology? Unless killed by another god? Is that what it is?
There are moments of gods dying in Greek mythology. I think there's a couple of references to very minor gods dying in the Titanomachy, but none of like the main ones. It's not like Ragnarok where there's this big end point.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of them like being injured and stuff in the Trojan War. But yeah, like in terms of Hercules in this, I'm not the biggest Hercules fan. I think the way he's kind of regarded in modern media is almost more interesting than the way he is in myth. There's just so much in myth about him. And a lot of it is fun, but a lot of it's kind of, it's not my favorite. I often tend to prefer stories about the gods to stories about the heroes anyway. So I'm interested to see what kind of personality he's going to have, like, and whether it's like what I was saying about like them needing a charismatic villain. Like, is he going to be the big bad that Thor's fighting? Is he going to be like a minor inconvenience? Like, is he even going to be in it? Or was that more of just a sort of like, haha, wouldn't this be funny? I also felt like I spoiled it for myself because I looked up the IMDb to find out who was playing Zeus because I knew he was in it. And literally right next to Zeus, they had the person playing Hercules. And I was like, oh, cool, Hercules is going to be in it. And then it was like a post-credit scene. I was like, oh, Marvel's normally a lot better at like keeping things secure.
Yeah. I also don't think the guy, I don't know. He is not who I would have picked.
No, but I know nothing about Hercules in the comic books. Like, I think...
In the comics, he's not that interesting until a certain point. So, like, Hercules, he's bi in the comics. And he's currently in a relationship with a character named Marvel Boy, which, personally, but I'm an outsider looking in, I think it is kind of weird that, like, it's kind of like an old man, younger man. He's not a boy, but Marvel Boy is still a younger man, kind of.
I think modern depictions of Hercules tend to have him as quite like himbo-ish, like he's very stupid, but he's very strong.
But we have that as Thor now. Thor's a himbo.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that Hercules is like that in mythology.
No.
Like quite a lot of the like trials that he goes through, he gets through them by having like asking Hades if he can borrow his dog. He doesn't go marching in there and like steal him. And, there's a lot of that sort of working out a way to do things. I'm interested to see where it goes. I thought the most accurate thing to Zeus was all the orgy talk. I think it was interesting to me.
Russell Crowe's accent. He's like, I'm still laughing about his accent.
And just like the idea that Thor modeled a lot of himself on Zeus is something that like a lot of people, like there's a lot of academic discussion about that. Because obviously I think Norse mythology is kind of like the 12th century and Greek mythology is, you know, BC. So there's like a full millennia in between. And obviously Greek mythology got taken to Rome. They incorporated a lot of gods, and you see a lot of iterations of similar gods to Thor around like sort of Baltic mythology and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there are like a lot of like academic debates about whether Thor is influenced by Zeus and to what degree. So it was interesting to see a film where they just fully go like, yeah, I modeled myself on the guy, like I wanted to be just like him, and then never really saying why.
Russell Crowe also mentioned, he's like, I'm trying to remember the quote. He's like, God of Thunder. And he's just like, that's just the sound of a lightning. I'm making him more like Mario, but Russell Crowe does a better and worse job than that in both ways. Lightning is just, or thunder is just the sound of lightning.
I think you had a lot of moments in this film, like with Russell Crowe, like with Melissa McCarthy, where it was just like, this actor is just so happy to be in this film.
Yeah. I don't know if you noticed, but Melissa McCarthy's real life husband was also, he didn't get to talk, but I think he was the director of the play. So he comes at the end when they do the curtain call or the bow, and he comes in next to Melissa McCarthy. So
that's very fun.
Yeah. What can we just real quick as we close out? What are your final thoughts? What do we expect going forward? I mean, we kind of just said I don't know what to expect.
I genuinely do not know. I think they're filming the second season of Loki at the moment, right?
Yeah, literally right now.
I don't want to go off on Loki.
That's a whole nother thought.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think, and also just like Marvel in general, like what is this heading towards? They're not going to do another Avengers film, are they? So it's not like there's
They will eventually. They'll eventually do.
Yeah. Okay. But it's not like there's that sort of overarching, the Infinity Stones kind of randomly popping up in films. It's just like the multiverse.
Which I don't like. I don't like the multiverse. I don't think it should have been a door that it should have been opened on a grand scale. It should have been like maybe in one movie and then like you shut the door. Like you're just like, it exists, shut the damn door. I'm having a big problem with that in a lot of my critique.
Yeah. And so I don't really know where it goes from here. I think if there is another Thor film, presumably this daughter of his is going to be in it. So it wouldn't surprise me if they maybe did like a time jump to her being like a bratty teenager and Thor struggling to like cope with that, maybe.
Right.
I would also.
We also have that in Groot. Groot's like a bratty teenager too.
Which is what I thought they were going to do with Korg. You know, like when they killed him off, I thought they were just going to find like a pile of pebbles and then it was going to like grow back into him, but it was his face. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a similar thing. I would like Loki. I would like Thor to find out that Loki is alive and then to kind of unravel the sort of TVA. I don't really like them going their separate directions because I think both of their characters are so much stronger together.
Yeah.
So even if it's not like the crux of the thing, I think it could be a bit like, you know, when Thor kind of goes out on his own to find the Infinity Stones and then a bunch of stuff happens. If he's like out on his own trying to find out more because he's certain he saw his brother before he like vanished and then he gets distracted by some other stuff, that's fine. But I would like that narrative to be brought back in.
Yeah. The question is, can someone take Loki's place? What if Hercules comes in and takes Loki's place?
I mean, like, I'm completely fine with, like, I think that depends on what, like, Loki's place is. Do you mean, like, acting as a brother figure to Thor, as someone to kind of bounce that energy back off of, to add the sort of twist of betrayal? I don't want Loki brought back in to kind of make Thor think he's on his side and then plot twist, he betrays him again. Like, that's tired. We're done with that.
Yeah.
I would absolutely love Loki to be like, this is my girlfriend. Also, she's me, but also she's not me because they fucked that up so badly. And Thor to be like, sorry, what? Like, I want Thor to be almost the voice of the watcher watching that mess happen and be like, Loki, you can't do that. Or like to be like, that's the most Loki thing I've ever heard or something. Like, I would just love to have, you know what, just have like a director's cut of the Loki TV series, but Thor's just giving running commentary. I would be happy with that for the next Thor film.
Okay, that's fair. I don't know what they're gonna do with Thor. I don't know what they can do. Maybe Thor will return, but not in a Thor movie. I don't.
Yeah, maybe he'll be in the next Guardians of the Galaxy or something.
How much you want to bet he'll be in Guardians 3? Like, I feel
I think they're trying to dilute the Chris Pratt that's in it.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
Just from a purely PR perspective, I think they're trying to add things in.
I mean, I think Chris Pratt will still be the focus.
He will, but I think they'll try and add more hooks in to get people that might be persuaded not to see it to get back on board.
Are there a lot of people who have given up on Chris Pratt? I don't feel like... Really?
I know a lot, but I also think I run in quite specific circles.
That's fair.
Mainly full of queer people that find it very offensive.
No, I agree. Chris Pratt has lost his luster for me, but we'll see. Yeah. I think it's going to focus more on Rocket, given what I know about Volume 3.
Do you think they'll bring Gamora back?
I hope so, because they didn't solve the Gamora problem in this. So
no.
There's technically 2 things Guardians related coming out. Guardians Christmas special, I think it's supposed to come out at the end of the year. This year.
I doubt they'll solve Gamora in that.
No. Well, she is green, so 'tis the season. And then they have Volume 3 coming out. And so I think the Christmas special is going to be like an hour long that they filmed at the same time. It's the holiday special, not the Christmas special, but whatever. And then Volume 3, I think, comes out next year. And so I know they are filming that. So we shall see. I think Thor will return in that because they're out in space. They're not back on Asgard.
Are they going to do a second Captain Marvel film? Because I could see Thor popping up in that if she's out in space doing things.
Yeah, it's the Marvels. But the Marvels is going to be her, Monica Rambeau, and Kamala Khan.
Okay.
So it's the 3 of them. I'm very excited for that.
I forgot about that. Yeah. WandaVision.
Yeah. So Monica, Carol, and Kamala. And
amazing.
So, we'll see how that goes. But I think there is still a lot to look forward to with Marvel, but I think they're kind of getting their footing. They're regaining their footing. I think behind the scenes, COVID messed things up. They got delayed. They kind of had to figure it out, but then also just things change. I mean, they're like, what is going to work? What is going to bring people back in the thing? I think they're going to give Spider-Man a rest for a couple of years.
I think they'll bring in a whole host of new directors as well and new writers.
Yeah, and I hope they bring in new talent because Sam Raimi was fine on Multiverse of Madness, but I think I would have liked just another director on it. Like, I personally don't care. I think that at a certain point, directors lose their luster.
Yes.
Mostly when they get older. And they've done 50 movies or whatever. Not that Sam Raimi's done 50, but,
I think Marvel struggled specifically with all the different directors directing the same characters on different films kind of at the same time. So you ended up with very different versions of what each character was.
They're being better now. Because
absolutely they are.
In Endgame, even though the Russos did Infinity War and Endgame, they referred to James Gunn and Taika for those respective characters. Which I think
the worst thing they did was Taika getting rid of Thor's hammer and then them immediately being like, we need to get Thor a new weapon. It was like, no, that's not the point. It was symbolic. It was very Captain America in Captain America being like, I'm going to fight every single rule I disagree with, just to then be in the Avengers films like, I'm a stickler for the rules. And it was like, who is this kid?
Yeah. Well, Joss Whedon messed things up because Joss Whedon just does his own characterization. So Captain America,
which often very 2D.
What's that?
I think Joss Whedon's are very 2D. They're like, this is the stereotype that I'm working with.
Yeah, well, you can, like, people have talked about how he identifies with Tony Stark and he hates Captain America, and you can see it because Tony Stark is like the smarmy hero that like Joss Whedon wishes he was as a nerd, and then Captain America's the jock that keeps getting in his way.
Which is not what Captain America is, but that's definitely how he like writes them.
And he'll.
So I'm excited to see what comes next, but I have absolutely no idea what it's going to be.
This, out of all the movies, I think out of any Marvel movie, I'm always like, okay, I can kind of see where they're going with this. There's a post-credit scene in Doctor Strange that I'm like, okay, I see where they're going with this. I won't spoil it. I don't know if you know it, but but in Thor, I'm like, I don't know what they're going to go with this. It seemed like the end. Until it said Thor will return.
Until it said.
So I'm like, okay, they could have ended it here. I'm not saying I want them to, because I think Valkyrie was pushed to the background, and I think she needs her time to shine.
It wouldn't surprise me if Valkyrie turned up as like a character on one of the TV shows.
Or got her own show. They're giving everyone their own. They're giving Agatha Harkness her own show.
That's true. And I'm very excited for that.
I am too, but I think it has to be broader than, like, I think a character's story now has to be broader than just them.
I think especially there's a level of concern that I have when they do the ones like Agatha, like Doctor Strange with magic, because it's like you could so easily break your own world here.
That's why I think like Loki doesn't make any sense, because the rules in there don't make any sense. They've brought in too much time travel and variants and whatever that like it's almost like magic. Like, why? What
and they wanted
rules?
It to have an almost like Umbrella Academy-ish vibe to the TVA, which I just don't think it was quirky enough to kind of get.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to look forward to coming out, but I feel like a lot of the Marvel projects don't connect with each other anymore, at least for this phase, which I'm fine with. They're bringing up separate plot points that maybe will intersect later. But I'm still excited to see what happens in, I think, next Marvel movie is Black Panther 2. I think that's going to be a wild ride, and I think that I'm not sure what's going to happen. We get Namor, the Submariner. I don't know if you know Namor, but he's like Marvel's Aquaman, except in this universe, because like in DC they kind of gave a Polynesian kind of thing to Aquaman. In this, they're giving kind of an Aztec theme to the to Namor. Now we don't know whether he's Atlantean or not, or how it's gonna work, but you know, I'm very curious, very intrigued on what's gonna happen. But there's still a lot to look forward to.
And they've got a lot of talent in that film, so
yeah, even if Chadwick Boseman isn't there, you know. Like, I think
for a while I kind of had like a dip in my interest in Marvel, which was very hinged around Thanos being desperately boring.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the like TV shows and stuff have made me excited again for it, and Thor Ragnarok. So yeah, I'm like really excited to see like what the next wave brings.
Yeah. And are you gonna watch She-Hulk? Have you seen the trailer for it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because that comes out, I don't know when. I gotta figure out when that comes out. July. No, this is July. August, I think. But I'm interested because that looks a little bit different too. So, you know. B, I want to thank you so much for taking time. I know that, you know, it's getting later and later over there, but thank you for taking time out of your night to be here talking Thor and Love and Thunder. Where can we find you? Where are you on social media?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I am Chaos on Olympus on Instagram and on TikTok. And yeah, I am on various different things, on various different social media, on my personal, but if you search B Fitzgerald, you should find it.
What do you got? You got anything big coming up that you were able to talk about?
I don't have things I am able to talk about, but there is definitely big stuff coming.
Awesome. Well, good for you. I can't get enough of your sketches and your videos on Chaos on Olympus.
They are very silly and I hope, very funny Greek mythology sketches.
Yeah.
With the classic sort of TikTok trending sounds. So if that's your bag, find me on Chaos on Olympus.
Your faces in those alone. Just like, you can cut out everything and you can just keep these facial expressions. And I'm like, that's the drama.
I can't believe I only got a B at GCSE drama. Like, some of the expressions I make, I watch the videos back and I'm like, I did not even know my face moved in that way.
Yeah. It's endearing and it works. You should have gotten an A+.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody out there for watching. I know Aries and Belligerent Pacifist dropped in. If you're watching us live or a little bit after the fact, where we archive our videos, you can watch us on volume.com/The Keeg Show, twitch.tv/The Keeg Show, and youtube.com/The Keeg Show. Twitch and YouTube are where we archive our videos. Personally, best curation is twitch.tv, so twitch.tv/The Keeg Show/videos, I think should bring up our archive of this episode and past episodes. But we also have our podcast, so if you don't have time to like watch us, you can listen to us on our podcast, wherever you get your podcast from: Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. We're on at least 5 podcast apps, if not more. I don't know. Wherever you guys listen to us or watch us, please like, comment, subscribe, follow, ding-a-ling-a-ling, whatever it is. Write a review, that would be great. So we know, wherever you digest us, I'm glad that you're digesting us. We're also on social media at TikTok and Instagram. Those are our 2 main ones. And we're also on Facebook and Twitter and whatever. You can find us pretty much anywhere at The Keeg Show. So it's /The Keeg Show, at The Keeg Show. Pretty much any social media you can find us. That's how you find us on the podcast. That's how you find us out there. Other than that, we got a lot of, different shows coming out for The Keeg. We got a lot of different shows per week. Definitely stay tuned for that. Again, find more information at The Keeg Show, especially on Instagram. But B, thank you so much. It was your first time coming on The Keeg, and I'm glad it worked out and we managed to make the time work. And I was very excited to come on here with you to talk about this. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I had a great time.
Yeah, thank you. I did too. Once again, everybody out there, I'm your host, Dimitri Pereira, and this has been The Keeg Talks, Thor, Love and Thunder. Take care, everybody. Bye.